y'all. So I was doing some research on Ted Bundy to write this, and I don't have a whole lot. Most of the stuff I have, I think, is pretty general information, because Ted Bundy was like this huge guy when he was around. Ted Bundy is pretty infamous, but this is kind of like an introduction into what Ted Bundy did. And so this is part 1. I'm going to try to do Ted Bundy in only 2 parts, which means part 2 will be a lot longer, but I will try to do it in just 2 parts. So, to start off, Ted Bundy kidnapped, raped, and murdered multiple young women in the 1970s and possibly before then. We don't actually know when Ted Bundy started killing. Okay. When he was in prison, he confessed to 30 different murders in 7 different states. Now, there are only 24 murders of his that we can connect to him, but he committed to 30 in 7 states. Or he confessed to 30 in 7 different states. Okay. Again, his total victim count is unknown, but it could also be more than 30. 30 is all that he confessed to. 24 we can link to him, but it could be more. So, Ted Bundy was regarded as charismatic and handsome. If you've seen pictures of Ted Bundy, he's an average-looking guy. He's not really all that handsome, but everybody's like, oh, he was so handsome, he was so charismatic, he was so smart. We will get into why Ted Bundy was not that smart later. So, Ted Bundy would feign either injuries or car problems in public places to lure women by asking for help, and nobody would think twice about that. He has a broken arm. He needs help loading his groceries into his car. His car broke down. He needs to use her phone. Or, he needs a ride. And nobody's going to think twice about a guy just asking people on the street if he can use their phone, or give him money for a payphone, or ask him to help him load his groceries because he's hurt or he has car problems, Nobody would think twice about that. So usually he would park in like an alley or something, and then he would come into a public place, lure them, say, hey, my car's just over here. They would follow him. So once he tricked them into following him, he would take them to a more secluded place and bludgeon them into unconsciousness, and then take them to a secondary location to rape and then murder them. So he would take them to where nobody would see them, bludgeon them until they fell unconscious, and then take them to a different place to rape and murder them. Because you can't rape them in an alley. I mean, you could, but there's a chance that somebody would find them. Okay. Anyway. Bundy would murder them, and then he would dump them. So a murder site and a dump site are different. A murder site is a crime scene. It's where the murder happened and they just left the body there. A dump site is a murder happened somewhere else and now they're here and this is the dump site. That's just where they left them. Well, he would go to his dump sites because he dumped them and rape the corpses until either they decomposed or they would be destroyed by scavengers, making sexual activity impossible. Now, at least 12 of the women he murdered, so at least half of the ones that we can link to him, they were decapitated and the heads were saved by Bundy in his apartment as souvenirs. Now, not all murderers take souvenirs. Really, it's only the, super sadistic ones that do. Okay, so now to go into Ted Bundy's childhood. This is where not a lot of people know. Ted Bundy was not born Ted Bundy. He was born Theodore Robert Cowell, November 24th, 1946, to Eleanor Louise Cowell, who was known by her middle name, Louise, and that's how I'll refer to her, at the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers in Vermont. So his mother was not married and gave birth to him at a home specifically for unwed mothers. Now, his paternity is unknown, but on his birth certificate, it was listed as Lloyd Marshall, a salesman and Air Force veteran. Now, Louise, the mother, she met a war veteran named Jack Worthington, who she claims abandoned her soon after she got pregnant. So she listed his father as Lloyd Marshall, but is now saying it was Jack Worthington who was the actual father. Now, census records revealed that multiple people by the names of Jack Worthington and Lloyd Marshall lived near Louise when Bundy was conceived. So they actually don't know. Now, some family members, like biological family members of Ted Bundy and Eleanor Louise, suspect that the father of Ted Bundy was Louise's biological father. Now, through a test of DNA, Bundy was not the product of incest. Some journalist got some DNA. She wouldn't tell us how, but she had a friend run it through like the lab and some tests, and it says that he was not the product of incest, which is good. But they still can't confirm his paternity because they don't have any DNA of Lloyd Marshall or Jack Worthington to compare it to. So they don't actually know. They just know that it was not Eleanor Louise's father. So, for the first 3 years of his life, Bundy lived with his maternal grandparents, Samuel Cowell and Eleanor Miriam Cowell, which is probably why his mother was referred to as Louise, because she had her mother's name. So, family, friends, and even Bundy himself were told that his grandparents were his parents and his mother was his older sister, which is terrifying. Bundy figured it out and resented his mother because of it. He found his birth certificate later on in life after a cousin of his called him a bastard and showed him the birth certificate. So, now a neighbor described Bundy as terrifying, saying he liked to control and inflict pain on others, which is absolutely terrifying. So Louise, the mother, had a younger sister. So this would be Bundy's aunt. So she was probably also... Bundy was probably also told this was another one of his sisters, because he was told his mother was a sister, but this was his aunt. So she recalled waking up from a nap, we don't know when, just from a nap, to find herself surrounded by knives that had been taken from the kitchen, and 3-year-old Ted was standing by her bedside smiling. So she was surrounded by knives. I imagine that they were either stuck in the mattress or they were laid out around her on the mattress, but I don't know. All it says is surrounded by knives, and that Bundy was standing by her bedside smiling at 3 years old. So they think that Ted Bundy took the knives from the kitchen, came in while she was sleeping, surrounded her, and then just waited for her to wake up. So he was terrifying from a young age, because if you woke up surrounded by knives with a 3-year-old staring at you, smiling, that'd be kind of creepy. If you just wake up and there's a 3-year-old staring, if I woke up and there was a 3-year-old staring at me, I'd be a little creeped out. Even if it's Elise. Like, I'm going to be sleeping one time and Elise is going to come in at 3 years old and just stand there. And if she's smiling at me, I'm going to be a little creeped out. If she just is staring at me, she's like, oh, Mom, are you going to wake up? But if she's smiling, then I'm going to be a little worried. Like, what did you do? Because if 3-year-olds are smiling, something's wrong. She's going to be like, naked, or there's going to be a mess that I now have to clean up, whatever. Anyway, so people would interview Bundy about his grandparents, and Bundy spoke very warmly of his grandparents. Like, he loved his grandparents. He said he identified with, specifically, respected, and clung to his grandfather. Bundy loved his grandfather. We don't know why. We just know that he did. And I'm going to give you a little hint into why Bundy killed women. So, Bundy killed women because, again, I said he resented his mother. So, a lot of the women represented his mother, but they also represented an ex-girlfriend that jilted him. There was an ex-girlfriend of his that he was, like, always in love with, and she rejected him, and he killed women that reminded him of her and his mother. Like, a lot of people that become murderers will kill surrogates. Let's take Hitler, for example. His grandmother was a Jew. Hitler hated his grandmother, so he killed Jews. But Hitler, when he was about 3 years old, he was drowning in like a pool or a lake or something, and a man jumped in to save him. That man was Jewish. So if it hadn't been for that Jewish man, there would have been no Holocaust. So Hitler was killing the people who saved his life. Just saying. But Hitler's a whole different story. Holocaust is a whole different story. We will not be covering that because everybody covers that like every year in history. because America fought in it, so you cover it in American history, and, like, Poland was invaded, and other places were invaded, so it's covered in world history. So, we will probably not cover the Holocaust, but that is Ted Bundy Part 1. I will eventually get around to Part 2. I'm hoping to do research this weekend, but I have the baby this weekend, so we'll see. But, yeah, that's it for today. I love you guys so much.